What if the next medical breakthrough could change thousands of lives? Welcome to Moving Medicine Forward, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the breakthroughs shaping the future of healthcare. I'm your host, Jeremy Schran, and together with CTI's leading experts, we explore the cutting edge of clinical research transforming patient care. Each episode, we dive into the science, strategy, and innovation driving medical advancements, joined by global therapeutic experts who are redefining how we understand and treat critical disease. From rare genetic conditions to revolutionary treatment protocols, we're not just discussing research, we're sharing the human stories that move medicine forward. Today, I'm joined by Farmen and Jeff Sturm, two board members of ALK Positive, a patient-driven organization that seeks a cure for ALK Positive cancer and works to improve patients' quality of life and life expectancy worldwide. These two passionate advocates join me to talk about their journeys, the power of connection, and how patient voices are helping shape the future of care. Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast, Jeff and Summer. We're so glad to have you with us today.
Great to be here.
So great to be here, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having us.
So to start off, can you share a little about yourself and the path that led you to ALK Positive? Summer, let's start with you.
Hi, I am Summer Farmen from Hershey, Pennsylvania. I am an ALK Positive patient. I was diagnosed on my 21st wedding anniversary. I'm a mother of 3 children. I have a special education background by trade. My oldest, who is 25, actually has severe cerebral palsy. So I have always been someone to prioritize health and take good care of myself. And then 6 years ago, found myself with a stage 4 lung diagnosis without having any risk factors.
And Jeff?
So my name is Jeff Sturm. I live in Northern California, about 20 miles east of San Francisco. I was a biotech entrepreneur in most of my career for about 30 years, finance and biotech in Silicon Valley. I was diagnosed with ALK Positive in 2014, so I'm 11 and a half years into this journey. I serve on the board of directors for ALK Positive Inc., as does Summer, and I serve on the medical committees as well.
So for listeners who are new to ALK Positive, how would you describe the organization and its mission?
We are a patient-driven, patient-led organization. We will be having our 10-year anniversary. The organization was started by a patient and nurse, oncology nurse, I believe, Marita Carroll, almost 10 years ago as a place for people to connect. Starting off with the mission that no one is alone in this diagnosis. And from there, it has just evolved and grown and eventually turning into a 501c3, which was shortly after I was diagnosed. Our focus is to cure ALK positive cancer, to make it chronic and curable, providing people with longevity. We believe in the philosophy that we are stronger together. We have a host of programs such as second opinion programs for people to get another set of eyes on them. And we also have patient education and empowerment programs, again, with that whole philosophy that we are stronger together and you're not alone in this.
The second opinion programs, we've heard a lot about that lately with some of the advocacy groups that we've worked with before. Tell us a little bit about that and how that works for ALK Positive.
Well, let me pick up on the importance of second opinions. So primarily, people deal with the local oncologists who are jack of all trades. And they know quite a bit about lung cancer, but ALK Positive is a unique variant, and it has very unique treatment options along the way that diverge and cluster depending on how far you're into the journey. So there are quite a specialized handful of what we call KOLs, key opinion leaders, across the country that specialize in ALK and other what are called oncogenic driven cancers like EGFR and MET, RET, that we use as second opinion docs. So each smart individual that has a disease builds their own team of second opinion doctors that in turn advise the local doctors. And certainly I can speak for myself, it's been very successful because my second opinion doctor has essentially overridden my local doctor several times with her happy cooperation, and it saved my life all three of those times. We do some funding for that too, don't we, Summer?
Yes, for sure. We do. We have donors that contribute sometimes specifically to our second opinion program. And so essentially, what it is if your insurance does not cover a second opinion, or you need help finding a second opinion doctor, and this actually is a global program, but we can connect them through virtual or in-person appointments with, as Jeff said, these key opinion leaders. I mean, research just in the 6 years that I have been diagnosed is constantly evolving and changing, and there is so much to know that a general oncologist couldn't possibly, it could keep up on. So your life depends on having another set of eyes on you, and ALK Positive seeks to facilitate that.
It should also be said that all of the National Cancer Institute certified teaching institutions have second opinion programs for just about all diseases. So you can connect with the right doctor at one that's perhaps closer to you and have an expert on your team.
You mentioned how much the research has changed. I want to talk more about that, moving medicine forward. We love to hear about all the new research that's coming out. What kind of research does ALK Positive support?
Well, since I've been working with the medical committees, we've done quite a lot. I think we've raised something like $10 million, primarily from the patient group. And we put that into preclinical research as well as clinical research itself. So some examples. Summer's dad, who serves on the Research Acceleration Committee with me, worked with a company called Astellas, who has a drug called gilteritinib. And one of the Japanese researchers put out a paper that said gilteritinib would work for ALK positive non-small cell lung cancer patients. Our committee forwarded it to all of our KOLs, and the people at University of Michigan picked up on it and said, we'd like to know if they'll give us some free drug. And Summer's dad, Ray, wrote to Astellas, and they said, sure, let's do it. But of course, University of Michigan didn't have the money to do the preclinical research, so we gave them a grant of $800,000 to get going. That has evolved over the past 3 years into a very large trial where I think there are 8 or 9, maybe more, trial sites open across the world, France and Spain, and across the United States. So from conception all the way through to research to trials and patients getting injections in their arms, I mean, we took that from start to finish. And we're all very, very proud of that. We support a program, pay for a program, of scientific research to identify different markers on the ALK positive cell that could be targets for all kinds of different treatments, in particular, treatments that are already approved for other indications. And we work with outside contract researchers to discover those, and in turn have created collaborations with university researchers to develop scientific research to see if there are treatments that would be applicable. And we have a couple of trials coming to fruition now where we pay for the research and then we go from there. It's very exciting to be able to do that. And then, of course, there are academic researchers that have ideas that they want to do a trial on, but they don't have the money to do it. And then we do a complete review and support them. So we're putting out money very efficiently. And this year, where a lot of the past 4, 5, 6 years of that kind of activity is coming to fruition, where we have multiple trials starting in 2026 that we supported from day one. The biggest research piece for us is an organization called Breakthrough Cancer, which is a collaboration of 9 different university ALK positive expertise cancer centers that are investing $20 million to discover the basis for minimal residual disease. So in ALK positive patients, cancer goes away frequently, or most of it goes away, but it sleeps in places. So the question is how do we get rid of that and how do we approach it? And that's a huge effort for all of us, to which ALK Positive is donating $2 million over a period of several years. And I could keep going all day with the many fronts that we're attacking it on. I appreciate your asking.
It's really incredible to see this group of patients come together and move this medicine forward. It's really inspiring to see that. ALK positive cancer is often described as a rare diagnosis with a common disease. How does that distinction shape the patient experience and the organization's priorities?
Well, and it's funny too because it is seen as a rare disease, although Ken Culver, who started out, he was a colleague of my father's, actually. My dad was a medical science liaison for a major pharmaceutical company where he had worked with Dr. Ken Culver. He's now our executive director and our medical director, and he is kind of pushing us away from that rare disease. He's like, no, there are plenty of them. They're living longer. We don't want to be seen as a rare disease, really pushing the needle to count us in. There needs to be more arms of ALK positive in clinical trials. And as just jumping on what Jeff was saying, will actually, by the end of 2026, I think we'll have had 11 clinical trials open in the past year that we have all pushed to happen, working with researchers and key opinion leaders. And also Ken has had the philosophy of we want to see action, like the people that are investing in this, the patients that are helping this movement, we want them to benefit. We want our ALK positive community that's here with us right now to stay in the game to see these things evolve. So yes, we're 3 to 5% of lung cancer patients, but we are staying in the game, as we call it, longer for that next opportunity or that next drug or treatment. And so it's making us less, quote, quote, rare. And we're also looking at it as that we're not just lung cancer. ALK positive can affect or be a driver in many different kinds of cancer.
So there are something like 250,000 lung cancer patients, new lung cancer patients per year in the United States, and 5% of that were 10 to 12,000, and that's not rare. And it's more than that now because we're living longer. And then something like 500,000 or more in the rest of the world. And the market in 2025 for ALK positive drugs was $2.65 billion. And that's not a small drug at all. But what's crazy is a lot of the scientists think, and some of the pharmaceuticals think, well, it's a rare drug, you've got a bunch of drugs for it. And we really work hard to make the case that that is not true. We are a big population, and there's a great opportunity to do some good with our group.
Targeted therapies have transformed outcomes for many ALK positive patients. What does living with the diagnosis look like today compared to like even a decade ago? You mentioned that a lot more people are surviving longer. What does that look like now compared to 10 years ago?
I was a patient 10 years ago, and we had one option that wasn't very good. Didn't do brain penetration, and it worked really well for about 6-7 months. Then I got brain metastasis, and I was lucky to get into a trial for a drug called alectinib, and that lasted me 5 or 6 years. So my life expectancy when we first started was less than a year, and here I am 11 and a half. What happens is that the place where the ALK positive drugs connect mutates and locks out the drug. And then we've cataloged the different types of mutations and developed additional drugs to address those changing mutations. So there are multiple generations. The third generation drug called lorlatinib by Pfizer, if you take it as your first line drug, then half the people on that drug, more than half the people on that drug, have not progressed at year 7. And even then, after the 7 years, there are other options. There are fourth generations coming. There are drugs completely out of the generational sequence that are coming down, that one of which was just approved, which just made it into the clinic a couple months ago. 2 vaccines are in trials right now. Another drug of completely different modality is in the clinic already. So there are a whole lot more options, and people are living a lot longer. That said, there are patients that are not living a lot longer. There's a subset with all of these treatments where unfortunately people go really fast. So that's the big effort, is to address that, to address the minimal residual disease. Once they get better, why do they get sick again?
And if I can just add on to that, that is a great description, Jeff. And exactly, we don't want to overlook those that are short responders or not responding as long, but also, which we're fortunate to have a new problem, and that's survivorship. It's dealing with these side effects that when you weren't living as long, weren't really there. These life-saving TKIs aren't without side effects. There is everything from extreme sun sensitivity to excessive weight gain, mental fogginess, hallucinations, muscle fatigue, joint pain, and it's all across the board. You don't know. Body shape or size isn't really an indicator. We don't know who they're going to hit or how, and you may respond differently on one treatment than the other. So that also brings us back to, again, why that second opinion is so important, and having somebody that knows the treatment, manage it, because you can play with dose reduction and you can work with the palliative care team. There's a lot of misconception about palliative care. Palliative care is about living. It's not necessarily end of life. It's about planning your vacations, buying the shoes, but helping you live your best life, whether that's, oh my gosh, I made it to the mailbox today, or I made it to Hawaii or Tokyo. And that's too where ALK Positive comes in and educating our community on knowing that you don't have to suffer. Keep reaching out, like as Jeff talked about, building this care team. We're in a fortunate space to, many of us, be living longer, but that doesn't come without a cost either.
Obviously, getting the right tests will help you get the right treatment and help with those second opinions. What gaps still exist in testing for something like ALK?
Well, we recently heard that barely half of the people that are diagnosed with lung cancer get the right genetic testing to find out about the targeted therapies. They go on chemo, and that maybe buys them 6 months to a year, and then they're in trouble. But with all of the oncogene-driven lung cancers, there are drugs to address them very, very successfully, and people live a lot longer. Some of them are tougher than ALK. ALK, we're the relatively lucky ones in the crew. The other issue is one of progression. Unfortunately, invariably, people have disease progression on their ALK TKIs, tyrosine kinase inhibitors. And at that point, it's great to get a biopsy and get the genetic testing done additionally. And biopsies are not always all that available. They have the tumors and the cancer happens in different places. Like I have progression in my abdomen, and you can't biopsy it because it comes in sheets. It doesn't come in nice round objects. But there's circulating tumor DNA testing now that's become increasingly sensitive. And it's great. I mean, it really gives you a whole lot of information about what's floating around in your body. And it also can tell you in subsequent testing when your treatment is working. So if the circulating tumor DNA is there and identifiable, and it helps you define the medication that's right for those particular mutations that are identified, then when you test again in a few months on the right targeted treatment, it can tell you whether the treatment's working, because all of those mutations in the ALK won't be there, which is really, really useful. And the testing modalities have really come a long way just in the last few years. And then, of course, we get blood tests. I get blood tests every month, and they watch certain tumor markers There's a set of 4 tumor markers identified by Dr. Ross Camage at University of Colorado that if one or more of those is going up, even though maybe you can't see it in your scans, then something's going on and you need to watch the scans a lot more closely. So testing, regular testing on and on is really important for all stages of the disease.
I was going to say similar, Jeff. The gap is that it's not always happening. We meet people who maybe had unnecessary brain radiation that then leads to a whole host of side effects that they could have avoided if they had just had the NGS testing upfront. Now, in the 6 years since I've been diagnosed, I feel like that number is improving dramatically of people having that upfront testing. That is huge. But we really pushed informed and shared decision making in having as much information as possible to know what the next best step is. And as Jeff said too, testing again at progression, if it's safe, if it's possible, that it's not a linear, you don't just hop from TKI to TKI or treatment to treatment. You have to know what's driving your cancer in order to make the next best decision.
You mentioned, Jeff, that you got to be in some clinical trials. What barriers do patients face when considering trying to be a part of these clinical trials? And how does ALK Positive address those issues?
The biggest issue is what are called the inclusion and exclusion criteria. They're very tight. They're very well defined, and most of the trials are designed to determine the safety as well as the efficacy. And that's the top priority. They're not really set up directly to be a healing modality. They're a scientific experiment, if you will. Although some of them work really well right out of the box, and everybody's really grateful for that. But it is the single most important issue in developing new treatments for patients. We do all that we can, and Summer's very active in this as well, to bringing the companies and the university investigators in to talk to our group. She'll tell you about her Sunday night ALK talks. And then I run a Clinical Trials Connect newsletter that goes out to over 12,000 patients and caregivers every month with all the news and all the sites that are open for each of the trials. And then we follow that up, Summer and I, with a Clinical Trials Connect discussion group where we bring in the investigators and they talk to us. And then we have another modality there where patients come in and talk to us about their trials. And we learn a lot from that. And people really do want to talk about that. We also have the Facebook worldwide support group, which is very active, something like 4,500 members. And there's a 24/7 ongoing conversation that people can check in. How are you doing on this clinical trial? So we know what's going on with the clinical trial people that are in there early. And it's the education and the information available is extremely well developed across our group. And the pharmaceutical companies have discovered that. And we can pretty much assure them that if their drug is effective and safe, that they're going to fill their clinical trials and move their drug along. And you can't say that for all clinical trials. Most of the clinical trials that fail do it for lack of accruing patients.
And I wanted to add too about a major hurdle for clinical trial access is location, is that they're not near everybody. And so we're definitely, when we meet with these biotechs, we're trying to have more site locations or possibly direct to locations that are different from other trials, just so more people are reached. And if not, then eventually, because, first they're testing safety before efficacy. So once they get through the first few cohorts too, we hope that then there will be something like expanded access, where if they don't meet the inclusion criteria that Jeff was talking about, perhaps they can get on the trial another way. We have on our ALK Positive website a clinical trial finder where you can go in and find trials near you. And then we also encourage sites or the biotechs to help get patients to these trials if they're not near them. So we want whether you live, not to be determined on by where you live, is something that we say frequently.
So one of the things that we've been doing is we get to work with the biotechs as they determine where they're going to do their clinical trials. And I've been in those conversations, and we've really done a good job. And Sadia Yakov is the project manager on this, one of our 4 employees, determining the demographics of ALK patients, of where we live and where there are no clinics or trials and no second opinions. And we've been able to give that data to the different trial investigators at the biotechs. In addition to that, we've got a project going of informing the ALK demographic around the trial sites that there's a trial open in their area with the contact information and everything else. And then I write a report for each of the different trials as they open and update them periodically, that it in turn gets distributed out to the 12,000 plus people on the newsletter and also on the website. So we really do the best we can to get the word out there.
You guys are doing a ton of work. It's really amazing, honestly. So navigating a cancer diagnosis can be very isolating. How does ALK Positive help promote connection and support among patients and caregivers?
Right as I was being diagnosed, summer of 2020, in the middle of COVID, when my family dropped me off at the emergency room, we didn't know, like, was I coming out? It was right at the height of the pandemic. We had no idea what was going on. And then fast forward through the summer, someone who became a dear, dear friend to me, he has also celebrated his 10-year anniversary, Mark Rosenzweig, was like, wait a second, Zoom is being used everywhere, for schooling, for work. Why not connect patients and care partners for support? And he worked with our then president of ALK Positive, Gina Hollenbeck, and they came up with ALK Talk and our patient education and empowerment program. It has then evolved. What ALK Talk does is it brings these key opinion leaders, pharmacists, nutritionists, anybody on your care team, experts from around the globe, right to your living room so that you can be educated, informed, empowered as you're going through this cancer path and making decisions. And I was like enthralled when I saw the first one, thinking it had been around forever. I didn't realize I was watching history unfold. My husband was like, why do I know that you're going to be a part of this? We knew right from the beginning. And I did weasel my way in there and have helped collaborate and build out ALK Talk and the healing arts. Mark had also created then an art therapy class with an art therapist. Actually, we have art therapy master's students that help lead that. And that was actually, I teased my gateway to ALK Positive, that I joined that. I met people just like me with this diagnosis, and we sat and talked about anything from our children to our diagnosis, to our struggles, to our successes. And from there, I started working with a group of people to help build out this program.
You've created this really robust network of patients and caregivers and all these people connecting. What are some of the most common concerns or needs that kind of go unspoken?
Validation. Mental health wise, it goes back to that connection. It's being validated. Jeff mentioned that there's a Facebook support group. Now, that is separate from ALK Positive Inc., the organization. The Facebook support group stemmed from that original start, but is run by 4 very dedicated caregivers who manage the comings and goings, and it's a private group and you have to be vetted to get in there, but it is a lifeline and a wealth of information. But just I remember, you're not sure, like, it's messing with your mind, like, why can I walk 2 miles but I can't get up the stairs, and then you type that into the Facebook search bar and people are like, oh my gosh, it's like I have sandbags tied to my ankles, and you're like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. So again, that being seen. The other thing is, you two can see us, like you wouldn't pick us out of a crowd as stage 4 cancer patients, right? Like we would not be on your bingo card as having stage 4 cancer. So a lot of times too, things can be overlooked and you're, oh my gosh, you look great. And I get it. I have had a child with cerebral palsy my whole life. So people mean well when they say things, but it can hit you different. So again, I think that relating to others, the validation,
The ability to check into one of the classes in our healing arts program. I mean, there's a class almost every day. I mean, I think it is every day, and sometimes 2 and 3. So you can pick and choose and develop your community that way. I participate in the men's group. It's once a month, and these guys have known each other for years, and they're all sharing their problems and opportunities and the stuff they go through. And it's really heartwarming to see the grown men really sharing their vulnerabilities and what they're doing about it. Having the support group on Facebook, you can check in anytime you want. And people introduce themselves and other people congratulate them for good things and commiserate with them for bad things. And you can ask any question under the sun about how you're dealing with the disease or the side effects or what to do next. And you get 10, 20 answers just like that with referrals and experience. And it's just there. Community is there. And then once a year, we do the ALK Positive Summit. This year is in Washington, D.C. And there'll be 5,000 plus patients, caregivers, and our key opinion leader doctors will show up and speak.
550 in person. There will be several thousand virtually. Yes.
Well said. And it's a rich agenda of new information and sharing by caregivers and sharing by psychotherapists sometimes. And certainly the latest research is presented as well. So those are just fabulous ways to not be alone throughout the process.
And they don't come without their heavy times either. This has become like a passion of mine, and you go through the motions and you're meeting with people and you're pushing, I'm hearing this in the support group. We need to make this happen. But then I have scans every 3 months and I'm laying in that bed like, how did I get here? What am I doing in this bed? So there are definitely heavy moments and it's scary. But for me, my personal therapy has been volunteering and giving back to know that I'm using this for good and making a difference.
Your passion really does come through. It really does. I want to leave us on a positive note and look to the future. You mentioned some of those trials that are close and maybe getting approved. What does treatment look like in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years?
We have a new drug that was just announced called a molecular glue degrader made by a company called Triana Biomedicines. And it was in stealth mode for years. Nobody had even heard of them. We knew nothing about it. But it's a type of technology that was approved in another indication. And there's a couple other drugs that are working really well for another type of cancer. So a group of venture capitalists got together and recruited and funded a company to create one for ALK. Certainly with the support of our ALK-specific KOLs. And then in September last year, one of our KOLs that I was meeting with said to me, you need to talk to these people. You need a glue degrader. And I went, what? So we called the people at Triana, and we've been working with them ever since, and the drug has made it into the clinic in the last couple months. That's a completely different modality. It attaches to a totally different part of the cell that tags the cancer cell for destruction by the body's own garbage disposal system. So it essentially liquidates the cancer cell, which we're very optimistic could be a much more durable, if not curable, curing drug. There will be more generations of ALK tyrosine kinase inhibitors that are coming along. There will be other drugs that address the immune system breakdowns that the ALK cancer generates. So there are biomarkers for the deterioration of your immune system specific for ALK. And these drugs will bring that back and make your own immune system more effective. And then there are at least 2 ALK positive vaccine programs going on. One just announced first results of safety and efficacy in, I think it was 12 patients. And within a year, none of those 12 patients have progressed. So from my point of view, that sounds like really good news. It's not definitive, but it's certainly optimistic. And then there's a BioNTech mRNA vaccine trial that's open in 2 locations in the United States. And they're currently recruiting 20 ALK positive patients to see if that works. And Moderna has one too that's very quiet, and that could be curative as well. So there's a lot going on.
So a ton of positivity coming.
Well, and I was going to say, it's all about precision medicine. And I think we're just going to see that precision medicine that's happening now. You talked about that testing earlier and where the gaps are. And we're saying why that testing is so important is to see, okay, what oncogene you have. But I think you're going to see that that's going to give even more information. And I know that the KOL's hope would be that they can detect upfront who's going to be a short responder. And it seems to, from the meetings Jeff and I are in, that combination therapy, whether it's 1 or 2 of those that he's talking about, working together to give you more protection to make this chronic based on what your precise testing shows that you as an individual need. I think that's our hope, that precision medicine gets even more precise and that more combinations can be used safely and effectively. And Jeff and I just want to stay in the game to see this all happen and ride the wave along with our community.
So if any of our listeners want to learn more about your organization or what the patients are going through or those clinical trials, where do they go?
www.alkpositive.org is the best landing spot. From there, you can go to Living with ALK. You could head over to our clinical trial finder. You can find our healing arts calendar. It's all there, our second opinion program. You just have to find your way through the maze, but alkpositive.org.
Thank you so much for the great conversation today, Summer and Jeff. It was really great talking to you and learning all about the ALK Positive mission.
We are so grateful to be here with you, to be the chosen nonprofit for your company for this quarter. We are totally honored to be nominated and are so grateful in you helping us get the word out about the disease and the organization that supports it and seeks to cure it.
I'll second that. Thank you.
That was Summer Farmen and Jeff Sturm, 2 incredible advocates working to make a difference for the ALK Positive community. Their stories are a powerful reminder that behind every clinical trial and every advancement in research are real people, real experiences, and a shared commitment to move medicine forward. Whether through advocacy, community building, or simply sharing their journeys, voices like theirs are helping shape the future of cancer research. Thank you, Summer and Jeff, for joining us and for the work that you do every day. And as always, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. Visit ctifacts.com to learn more about how we can help you with your clinical trials. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep moving medicine forward.